We have a larger portfolio. We're used to being able to seeing company when we invest just grow very, very quickly, and that pressure mounts. And so at a certain point when it looks like the market's changed, or you're faced with incredible competition, or you're having to raise, you're running out of money far earlier than you anticipated, we look at it and we say, well, if we can sell now for this kind of price range and get 2x our money, or 3x, or sometimes it's even 1x, we say, let's look at the possibilities, and let's look at it from the entrepreneur's perspective. And more often than not, we are actually the ones convincing the entrepreneur that he should probably sell. That the risk of raising money, of going out, of being diluted, and then going another 2 years is so great they should sell. So it's not so much just the entrepreneurs, it's also the investors, but ultimately it's a collective effort to make that decision. But I don't see it as a disease, as the way some do in Israel. I don't see it as a problem. No country in the world has the volume of M&A exits that Israel produces. And we're proud of that. We bring multinationals to Israel, multinationals that have done it before, like Cisco, but also new multinationals that have never set foot in Israel. And that adds to the high-tech ecosystem of which we generate entrepreneurs, we recruit management, and we recruit engineers. And so that's vital for the industry. And so I think it's clear that while we're having a lot more M&A exits, we're seeing a lot more IPOs. I don't know how many we've had, how many are in the pipeline right now. The estimate's about 5 or 6, but we've had for sure 3 or 4 big ones over the last 12 months, and I think that's a sign of good things to come.
That's interesting. Dealing with this point, thank you, dealing with this thing of exits, and this is an open question to any of you who want to participate. We've looked at the analysis, and indeed about, I guess, the 80-20 rule works here very well. So like 20% of the exits provide 80% of the returns in this industry. I think you showed me that statistic yesterday. So it's a very fresh statistic. It somehow appears that we're seeing bigger and bigger exits. And I was about to ask you, is it because the market is hungry, or because we are collectively becoming better at developing these kind of companies?
I think we're getting better.
We're getting better.
We're getting better. The ecosystem's maturing. The entrepreneurs are usually on their second startup. They've already pocketed maybe $500,000. They're not worried about getting rid of their mortgage. But same with the investors, whether it's an angel investor or the Israeli fund or the US fund, for sure. And I do think that having strong investors around the table that have a reputation for going all the way or investing more money, it sends a message about we're building a bigger company, and we're not going to accept a geographic discount. And I think we're seeing that with a number of exits over the last couple of years.
So that's good news for the industry. You seem to be quoting a bit of what Becca said, that experience does count in this kind of industry, in spite of the notion
Of course it does. By the way, even if you were to go back a decade ago and looked at the big exits, those were exits in the bubble years. Most of those companies had meager revenues. They never amounted to much. Unfortunately, many of the funds that were here at the time didn't really have a choice. A company was offered $500 million or $1 billion or even $4 billion. You took it.
Sure.
You didn't have a chance to build a company. Nowadays, you have a chance to build a company. It takes a minimum of 5 years. Sometimes it takes 10 or even 12 years. We never had the chance to do that in 1999. Companies that exited and went public in 99, they were founded 2 or 3 years before. That's
right.
it. So, of course, we're more experienced as an industry, and we're seeing the results.
Okay. Gadi, and then,
yeah. Just to add to that, the experience has to do not...
They will all tell you we're getting better, but nevertheless.
I'm saying the experience has to do not necessarily with very, detailed advice and analysis. It often comes from, personal experiences that you went through or your fund went through that just give you the stamina and the courage to pull through it. At very important junctions. We had several incidents like that in our portfolio. ClickTech, it's actually a Swedish company that we invested in. Then in the middle of 2008, in the middle of the financial crisis, the company was doing pretty well. We got an offer to sell the company for $300 million, middle of the financial crisis. It's a very, very difficult decision to make, especially when you have, and I don't remember that, it was part of JVP back then, it's, you have entrepreneurs, and it's their first company, they probably can do very well, to themselves. And just because you personally or your fund went through some positive experiences, really pushing for very significant companies, and you know it can be done, and you have, you just have the experience going through that, you know, we could drive them to continue, not to take this offer, continue and drive through. It ended up as, I mean, for us, we sold our position at $2.4 billion, $2.4 billion. That was the value of the company average when we sold our position. And, you know, lately we had a similar thing with CyberArk, a company in the cyberspace here in Israel. 2010, again, what's very common in the Israeli scene, you have a private equity fund that comes in, you know, would give an investor, you know, 3 to 4x on the money. The company been, you know, probably been at that point about 7 years from inception. And I think a lot of the, you know, at the end of the 90s, many VCs would take that offer and say, okay, fine, we did a nice multiple on our money, you know, it's a safe bet, etc. But, you know, I think part of the experience that we gained as an industry is to know that it is, you know, a few companies that makes the difference. And if you have one of these in your portfolio, it's your responsibility to yourself, to the entrepreneurs, to your investors, to really make sure you maximize the value of this company. So we ended up, instead of selling, we ended up buying. We increased our position to more than 50% of that company. And you know, last week we've announced that we're actually taking it public, and we started the roadshow for CyberArk. So of course there are some other failure stories that I'm not going to share with you necessarily right now, but I'm just saying at these critical junctions, it's very, very important to have people around the table that have these positive experiences and can push to maximize value.
Thank you. I think you want. It looks like the ability to say no to a deal is something very important here. But
I clearly concur with both comments, and we see that the industry and as a whole is maturing. But what I really want to point is that currently there's a very interesting phenomena where, on one hand, what was called the Israeli discount over the years is very much in place in the early stage investments, where we see, at least I see, a 70% discount of you know, an A-round kind of financing, where the comparable team, if they would go to the U.S., would get you know, 3 or maybe more X on the pre-money valuation. But on the other hand, on the exit side, we see a much closer gap in terms of these Israeli discounts, and that really comes into effect because of the maturity of the entrepreneurs, the investors, the advisors, etc. So that's a very, very interesting phenomenon that we see currently. And of course, what it means is an amazing opportunity. It's a market failure for investing now in Israeli early stage.
So you're saying at the early stage there is a discount. We'll talk about Czechoslovakia in a minute. So Robert, I'll turn to you. But we're also interested to understand if there's a Czech discount or a Hungarian discount or a Greek discount. Go ahead.
I'll just add one thing on the exits. I think it's supply and demand. You're seeing the technology companies that are coming in and writing the large billion-plus checks just have more money, more market cap. Technology continues to eat new markets, so they continue to be nervous about themselves getting eaten. So for them, for Facebook to write $1 billion check to take out Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever, well, WhatsApp much more, but for them it's a total no-brainer. Instagram at the time, everyone thought it was insane valuation, and now it looks like a bargain. So I think that's on the supply side. I think on the demand side, it's an aspect of the evolution of the market. There's more ability to say no. Companies, Israeli companies, other companies can go public. There's now the secondary market, which is a new phenomenon relatively, 7, 8 years, I think, maybe 10, of founders being able to get liquidity through other means, and I think that also enables them to build up companies without the pressure to exit prematurely. AVG. Speaking of exit prematurely, no. AVG is a Czech company that pretty much pioneered almost by accident the freemium model. This is well before we got involved. It started to penetrate. It's actually a great example of a company trying to penetrate a market, failing miserably, and just coming up with something new and said, let's just give it away for free. So they gave it away for free in 1999. And by the time we got involved, looking at it, 2004, it had 25 million users, a team that had really no idea what to do with those users. And so we came in and not just invested money. Actually, we didn't invest any money in the company. AVG's always been profitable, to your point. It's never actually needed secondary investment. But we helped build it up and really think bigger. I mean, I think the biggest value we added was there's no reason a company in Brno, which is the second largest city in Czech Republic, about 500,000 people, I think. There's no reason why the company from there can't be a global leader. And we just kept, as a mantra to management and to the employees, putting that in people's heads. And then with a little bit of luck and also bringing in some other investors, managed to grow it up to the company it became. And it's still a leader and went public 2.5 years ago, which is not always a great outcome for companies either. We talk about exits and is it exiting early or too late? And if a company goes public, it's not always a great outcome either for either the entrepreneur or the business as a whole. Some companies also go public before they're supposed to.
Tell us about the VC market in the Czech Republic in general.
I think the financial, I would call it not just the VC market, but the whole financial ecosystem is taking the model of the world, where you're seeing angel investors coming in earlier and earlier. 10 years ago when we started investing in Czech, we actually did it because we started advising companies on raising capital, found there was no way to actually raise capital. There were no VCs, certainly no angels. So we started investing in our own clients, which wasn't the best idea at the time, but then actually led us into the market, led us to AVG, led us to other things. And now it's amazing how much money there is available, and it all really emanates from angel investors. You have a lot of Czechs who have made money through various ways, privatization, et cetera, who want to put money, and through technology exits, and want to put money back into the ecosystem. And I think you're seeing, obviously, Israel, US, et cetera, but you're seeing that in a lot of markets as well, Czech being an example, where companies can actually get off the ground with some capital and not reliant on VCs. And then you do have some venture capital funds that have started regional and local, very specific. But I think it's really the angel investment community that's pushing things forward.
One of the things, talking about the ecosystem that we've seen develop, is over time, successful entrepreneurs become sort of local heroes. And then over time you want to have the typical Jewish mother or whatever encourage her son or daughter to become an entrepreneur rather than what they used to do, said, get yourself a real profession, be a doctor or be a lawyer. So like the guys from AVG, are they sort of local heroes in Czechoslovakia? Does that seem to work as well?
They are. The AVG, Avast, which is another antivirus company that's gone through an exit, they're local heroes. They're populating the ecosystem. There's a VC fund that we're an investor in that's raised from about 25. It's a fund that's invested. It's raised money from 25 individual investors, mainly Avast, AVG, other alumni. So yeah, you get a lot of that, and these guys are being able to invest in things that they know, things they understand, and I think to Gigi's point and other people's point, it's much easier. In Czech, we ran a fund, so I invested other people's money. Now it's mainly our own money plus syndicating to our investors, and it's much easier to invest your own money. It's always easier to lose your own money than other people's money. So I think for that, from an early stage point of view, that's what's driving a lot of it. That especially there's always been a stigma in Czech and perhaps other Central European countries of going bankrupt, of losing money, et cetera. Nobody likes to lose money, and in those markets especially don't like to lose money. So when you have these people that have the money to lose, think like that, they're able to drive the venture forward.
So help me out on this personal investing side. I've had this problem at home. So I understand that if you're an angel investor, like Gigi told us, you don't have to go through a rigorous due diligence. You try to find a shortcut. And you're sitting here saying it's fun. Does any of you clear these investments with your wife, for example, or that's your territory to lose your money?
She wants nothing to know what I invest in.
Gigi? Do you have an investment committee at home, is the question.
talk about investments that one could eventually not do for the wrong reasons. So one of the companies I invested in that ended up exiting very fast, by the way, a very bad exit, is my best deal because we sold the company for $140 million after 10 months. But it's my worst one because that company now, 2.5 years later, is going to make around $200 million EBITDA this year. So it's, you know, I like saying that my best deal and my worst deal is the same deal. I'm in a good position. But that deal, that company was founded by somebody who was a good friend of my wife's. And when we started the company, it was on the lawn of a good friend. We sat down, we played backgammon, and he was complaining that life's not treating him well. And that is, you know, he doesn't know what to do. He was unemployed. He was not sure. And I had an idea around something, and I'm not saying the name. You'll understand in a second why. And I had an idea around something, and he liked the idea. And I said, you know what? I'll give you a salary for a few months. Go check it out. So we went. He checked it out. And to make a long story short, we found the co-founder. I gave them some money. Then there is a bit more. And in 10 months, they sold the company, which was amazing. But on the way back from that, so these friends' house was somewhere in the mountains of Jerusalem. And on the way back, I told my wife, you know, your friend, I decided that I'm going to invest in his, you know, in the venture with him, and I'm going to give him some money. And she went and said, are you crazy? You know, this guy never liked working. You know, we lived together in New York for many years, and the guy always used to work. He said the maximum a person should work is to be able to pay rent, to be able to buy cigarettes, and to be able to buy food. When you finish that, you go home, you smoke, and you eat. Said, is that the guy you're giving our money to? And she was so blunt about it that almost on the way home, it had not been uncomfortable for me. I might have even called back and said, I'm taking the offer back. So that's so much for consulting your wife on entrepreneurs. Or your spouse, I mean, not wives.
I wonder what she would say if we asked her for her vision, but that's a good contribution. I don't know. My wife always has the same opinion. You're making another mistake at the expense of our children. Story, your turn. Speaking of cross-border, you have the Italian part in you, you have the investing in Israel in the clean tech scene. Clean tech has had its boom years, then its down years, maybe it's coming back up again. Give us a feeling about what's happening in your part of the world.